Hello there. Today we're going to share a story with you, one that just might change the way you see people, the idea of opportunity, and maybe even yourself. It begins on a street corner in Chicago, where a homeless man named Eli Navarro found the courage to walk up to Elon Musk. But instead of asking for money, he asked for a job. It was a moment that seemed small, almost insignificant, but it sparked a wave of change no one saw coming. This story isn't just about survival. It's about the deep human desire to be seen, to be given a second chance. So if you've been looking for a reason to believe that kindness still exists in this world, stay with us until the end. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this video to help spread a message of hope, dignity, and opportunity. We're so glad you're here. Eli Navarro once had the kind of life many people dream of. He worked as a software engineer at a tech firm in San Diego, owned an old but reliable car, lived in a small yet cozy apartment, and woke up every morning with a genuine passion for code. But then his mother, the only family he had left, fell seriously ill. Medical bills began piling up like a never-ending stream of numbers. Eli tried to keep up. He took on extra work, borrowed money, scraped every penny, but her condition worsened, and eventually he had no choice but to quit his job to care for her full-time. When she passed away, Eli didn't just lose the person he loved most, he lost his final anchor in life. What followed was a downward spiral. No income, no family, no place to go. Eli drifted to Chicago, holding on to the faint hope that in a city that big, maybe, just maybe, there would be an opportunity waiting. But Chicago's winters were brutal, and its summers scorched like fire. Eli slept in train stations, ate at soup kitchens, and moved through crowds like a shadow no one saw. He stopped counting the days. Every morning was just the start of another battle to survive. Every night, a fight against the cold, the noise of traffic, and the crushing weight of loneliness. There were moments he thought about giving up altogether, but somehow some part of him held on. Because deep inside, he still believed if just one person looked him in the eye long enough, they would see a man who still had worth, who still had something to give. And then, that day came. Chicago was more electric than usual. News had spread that Elon Musk would be visiting a new gigafactory on the west side of the city. The crowd grew with every passing minute. Some came hoping for autographs, others for selfies, most just to catch a glimpse of one of the greatest minds of the century. Eli wasn't even sure why he was there. Maybe he just wanted to feel like a part of society again, even if only as a bystander. When the sleek silver Tesla pulled up to the gate, Eli found himself moving closer. The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed. Elon stepped out, wearing a black jacket and gray tee, his face calm, as if walking onto a familiar stage. Security formed a tight line in front of him. But Eli had managed to push his way to the front. What happened next took only seconds, but changed everything. "Mr. Musk," Eli called out, his voice shaky but clear. A security guard immediately turned, stepping toward him, hand raised to stop him. "Just 1 minute," Eli said, locking eyes with the man. Maybe it was something in those eyes that made the guard hesitate, or maybe it was Elon's intuition that told him this man wasn't a threat. Elon looked up. He saw Eli, thin, unshaven, clothes torn and worn, but with eyes that didn't waver. A silence fell over the crowd. "I'm not asking for money," Eli said, his voice stronger now. "I'm asking for a job." Elon's eyebrows lifted, intrigued. Then he asked with quiet weight, "What can you do?" Eli straightened. "I was a software engineer. I wrote behavioral prediction algorithms. I can optimize systems, spot flaws, and write code faster than most people you've ever met," the crowd murmured. Phones lifted to capture the moment. A reporter pushed a microphone forward, but Elon just stood there studying him. Give me a computer and a problem, Eli said. If I can't solve it, I'll walk away. Elon turned to one of his aides, whispered something. She hesitated, then nodded. Elon looked back at him. All right, Eli Navarro. Show me what you got. Eli followed him inside, through the ring of security, through the storm of flashbulbs, past the gasps of the crowd. But in his mind, there was only one thought. This isn't luck. This is a chance, and I'm not going to waste it. The glass doors closed behind him, sealing off the noisy crowd and flashing cameras outside. Inside, everything was strangely quiet. Eli walked slowly behind Elon, passing the gleaming hallways of the Tesla building as if he had just stepped into another world. A world that only hours ago felt like 1,000 emotional miles away. They stopped in front of a small glass-walled room. A desk, a laptop, a bottle of water, and a sandwich were waiting. Elon looked at him, eyes sharp yet curious. You have 1 hour, he said. This is a problem our AI team has been struggling with for weeks. How to make machine learning systems learn faster from less data. No pressure, just show me how you think. Then Elon turned and left, leaving Eli alone with the glowing laptop. Eli sat down, his hands slightly trembling. Part of it was nerves, the rest, hunger. He hadn't had a proper meal in days. He picked up the sandwich and ate it slowly, each bite feeling like a luxury. With every swallow, he could feel the energy return, not just to his body, but to his mind. By the time he set the water bottle down, something in his eyes had changed. He was no longer a homeless man, lost and worn. He was Eli Navarro, software engineer, once proud of the code he wrote, once at home in a world of logic, algorithms, and elegant solutions. He began to type. The first few lines of code felt like a heartbeat returning. His fingers, stiff at first, soon began to flow like they were dancing. He analyzed the current system, identified redundant code, and restructured convoluted logic. Line by line, function by function, he rewrote the architecture, like sketching a forgotten masterpiece back to life. Midway through, an old idea resurfaced, one he'd thought of years ago, but never had the chance to build. A machine learning model that prioritized which data to learn from first, rather than processing everything in a linear, brute force way. It had never been implemented until now. He wrote a new module, ran tests, optimized, retested. Time no longer existed. There was only the problem in him, fighting to solve it, not just for a job, but for survival, for redemption. Outside the glass room, Elon stood with a few senior engineers, watching through a monitor. A silver-haired woman, Dr. Ramirez, the head of engineering, narrowed her eyes as she followed the lines of Eli's code. He's not just fixing bugs, she said. He's restructuring the entire logic flow. When the hour was up, Elon walked into the room. Eli stood, taking a deep breath. I improved the system by prioritizing the data based on its impact on learning outcomes, he explained. And I added a feature, an interpretability module. It explains the AI's decisions in plain English. It helps users trust the system. Elon reviewed the code silently, then turned to Dr. Ramirez. She nodded, impressed. This exceeds expectations, she said. His structure for the learning loop is clever, elegant even. Eli said nothing. He wasn't looking for praise. He just wanted to be believed in. This is only the first step, Elon finally said, thoughtful. I don't believe in luck. I believe in consistency. Eli nodded. I'm not asking for pity. I just need the chance to work, like anyone else. Elon clasped his hands behind his back. All right, 1 week trial, no promises beyond that, but if you prove yourself, we'll talk again. Eli bowed slightly. I won't let you down. As they left the room, Dr. Ramirez leaned in and whispered to Eli, not everyone on the team is going to welcome you. Some will think you don't deserve to be here, because you didn't come the traditional way? Prove them wrong. That night, Elon arranged for Eli to stay in a small corporate apartment reserved for visiting engineers. It had a bed, a kitchenette, hot water, all basic things. But for Eli, they were a miracle. He stood under the shower for nearly an hour, letting the hot water wash away the dust of the streets and the weight of the past. Later, at the desk in that modest apartment, he opened the laptop and began to write down a new set of ideas. A name surfaced on the blank screen, almost uninvited, almost inevitable. CodeRise. A project, a platform. Not just something to help him survive, but something that could help others like him be seen. Eli wasn't just starting a new job, he was starting to rewrite his entire life. On his first morning in the small Tesla apartment, Eli woke up before any of the 3 alarms he'd set. After months of drifting from place to place, this was the first time he'd opened his eyes in a real bed. White sheets, the faint scent of soap still lingering on the towel. And on the desk by the window sat a wrinkled piece of paper where he had scribbled 2 words: CodeRise. The official first day of his trial began in silence. When Eli walked into the office, no one greeted him. A few glances, a couple of indifferent nods. He understood. His presence raised questions for many. A man who had once slept under a bridge now sat among Tesla's top engineers. To some, that felt like a contradiction. A young red-haired engineer approached and offered a handshake. "I'm Ryan. I'll show you to your desk." "Thanks," Eli replied, shaking his hand. His shoulders relaxed slightly. At least not everyone had turned their back. On his screen, the first assignment appeared. Optimize the navigation algorithm for Tesla's autopilot system. A heavy workload, but familiar territory. Eli buried himself in the code like a man returning to his native language. And he didn't just finish the task. He identified 3 redundant blocks of code that had been slowing the system down by nearly 12%. But when lunchtime came, he sat alone. The room buzzed with chatter and clinking utensils. Laughter, conversations, camaraderie. Eli quietly ate his sandwich, ears catching the whispers. "I heard he used to be homeless. He got this job just by meeting Elon. Must be a PR stunt. Hundreds of qualified applicants turned down, and he walks in?" Eli didn't react. He was used to skepticism. What kept him grounded was CodeRise, the project he was secretly building each night. A system designed to connect people like him, skilled but homeless, with companies in need of talent, using real-world assessments instead of polished resumes. For 3 nights in a row, Eli stayed up past midnight, writing line after line of code for CodeRise on the very laptop Tesla had provided. He knew it might get him into trouble if someone found out, but he couldn't wait. The world couldn't keep ignoring people just because they lacked a home or a formal email address. On the 4th day, something unexpected happened. Ryan, the young engineer from earlier, walked over to Eli's desk. "Hey, I read your code from yesterday. The way you handled the turn priority flow, that was clever." Eli smiled, genuinely this time. "Thanks. I used to write similar algorithms when optimizing mobile apps at my last job." "Which company?" Ryan asked. "Micronav. I was based in San Diego before my mom." He trailed off. Ryan nodded gently, not pressing further. His eyes landed on a sketch on Eli's desk, a few strange-looking notes. "CodeRise? What's that?" Eli hesitated, then answered. "It's a new kind of recruitment system. No resumes, just real skills. I believe there are people out there, like I was, who only need a test, a shot, and they can prove everything." Ryan paused, then nodded. "Sounds promising." That afternoon, when Eli returned from a meeting, he found a small slip of paper on his desk. Luck doesn't last forever. No name, no handwriting to recognize. Just a cold, sharp sentence. Eli crushed the paper in his fist. He wasn't angry. He wasn't afraid. He understood. His presence wasn't just unusual to some, it was threatening. Because if a man who had once slept in a park could do the same job they did, then what did elite really mean? That night, Eli didn't write a single line of code for Tesla. He devoted the entire night to CodeRise. He redesigned the interface, built a new automatic skills assessment tool, planned the integration of mental health support, and even drafted a fast-track housing model to give candidates a temporary place to stay during evaluations. He knew that if this project became real, it wouldn't just save one life. It might change how society sees people altogether. On the 5th morning of his trial week, Eli woke up feeling different. Not because he had slept less, but because, for the first time in years, he woke up with a sense of purpose burning in his chest. When he arrived at the office, Ryan was already waiting, holding a cup of coffee and a piece of paper covered in notes. "I've been thinking a lot about CodeRise," Ryan said without hesitation. "I think it could actually work if we build the right framework." Eli blinked, surprised. "Are you serious?" Ryan nodded. "I had a friend, brilliant guy, studied at MIT, but he dropped out because of depression and could never get hired, even though he was more talented than half the people I've worked with. A system like CodeRise could save people like him." For the first time, Eli felt someone truly believed in what he'd been quietly building. And then, something unexpected happened on day 6. Elon Musk showed up at Eli's desk early. "I heard you've been staying late," Elon said, his tone curious, not angry. Eli nodded. "I've been working on something personal." Elon tilted his head. "Show me." Eli's heart pounded. He hadn't planned to show CodeRise yet. It was still unfinished. "But you don't say no to Elon Musk." He opened the laptop, his fingers trembling slightly. "A platform to connect homeless or unemployed individuals with the right jobs?" Elon raised an eyebrow. "Not just a connection," Eli said. "It assesses skills, builds personalized training paths, offers temporary housing and mental health support. Each person has a different story. They need a system that adapts, not one size fits all." Elon quietly clicked through a few modules. The interface was basic, the features incomplete. But the spirit, the core idea, was crystal clear. "Why are you doing this?" Elon asked. Eli looked him straight in the eye. "Because I was lucky enough to be seen by you, but there are thousands more like me who aren't." Elon said nothing, just looked at him for a long moment. Then, "Come to my office at 4 p.m. We need to talk." That entire afternoon, Eli couldn't concentrate. He was scared. Scared he'd crossed a line, scared they'd accuse him of misusing company resources. But underneath the fear was something else. Hope. A quiet, stubborn hope. At exactly 4 p.m., Eli stepped into Elon's office. On the desk sat a tablet displaying a contract. But it wasn't a job offer like he'd imagined. It was something else. "You're going to lead a 6-month pilot project called CodeRise," Elon said. "I'll fund it. Staff, office, and your salary. If it works, we expand." Eli could barely believe what he was hearing. "You're serious?" "I rarely joke about million-dollar investments," Elon replied with a faint smile. And just like that, CodeRise officially began. No longer a dream scribbled in a notebook, but a real project with its own office in the heart of Chicago and 3 core team members. Ryan from engineering, Mira from HR, and Jordan, a social worker who had spent years helping the unhoused. The first few weeks were rough. The skills assessment system worked, but few people showed up. Not because they didn't want to work, but because they no longer believed they deserved a chance. Eli understood. He had lived that hopelessness. So he returned to the places where he used to sleep. Shelters, soup kitchens, public parks. He stood in front of weary eyes and told his story. about the moment he dared to ask for a chance, about how Elon Musk once looked at him and asked, "What can you do?" And how that simple question opened an entire new world. With every story, one more person signed up, then two, then three. In the first month, CodeRise enrolled 12 participants. A former welder in recovery, a female coder battling depression, an accountant who lost her home to medical debt. Each one was a story, each one a flicker of light. And then, CodeRise started working. The first graduate, Ava, a former homeless web designer, was hired by a marketing agency. The following week, Terrell, a man who had been living in his car, received 3 job offers as a developer. People once called worthless were now salaried, under contract, and rebuilding their lives. The story spread. The media picked up headlines like, "The job platform that doesn't need a resume." Some called Eli a pioneer of fair hiring. But Eli stayed quiet, watching each person succeed, and whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." Everything came faster than Eli ever imagined. In just a few months, from a man who once slept on park benches, he had become the project director of CodeRise, a skills-based hiring platform that helped dozens of forgotten individuals find jobs, housing, and most importantly, themselves. The media called him the symbol of second chances. Podcasts, articles, even TEDx events invited him to speak. And everywhere he went, Eli shared the same story. Of the day he stepped out from the crowd in Chicago, looked Elon Musk in the eye, and asked for a chance. That moment was shared millions of times, igniting a belief that with enough courage, anyone could change their life. But one night, while reviewing internal files for the West Coast expansion plan, Eli stumbled upon a strange folder titled Pre-Curtis Initiative. At first, he didn't pay much attention, but then his eyes froze on a familiar name, Navarro. He opened the file and each line felt like a blade to the chest. It was a detailed assessment of him, his skills, work history, even social assistance records, all dated before he ever met Elon. And at the bottom, one line made his breast stop. Compatibility rating, very high. Recommend unannounced encounter approach. Ensure emotional authenticity. Objective, media activation, and second chance model testing. Eli's heart sank. The moment he believed was his life's turning point, a miracle born from his own will. It had been orchestrated from the beginning. The next morning, Eli placed the document on Elon's desk without a word. Elon flipped through the pages, didn't deny a thing. He simply said, "I'd heard of you, a homeless engineer who'd once built remarkably efficient machine learning algorithms. I had my team watch for you. When you showed up that day, I let it happen." Eli felt betrayed. His voice trembled, barely a whisper. "I thought I stood up on my own." "You did," Elon replied calmly. "I just set the stage. The story, you wrote that." Eli walked out without another word. For the next 3 days, he vanished. No messages, no office visits, no calls. He returned to the same streets of Chicago he once called home, sitting alone on the same park bench where he used to dream of a different life. He thought about leaving everything behind. But then, in the cold wind, a familiar voice called out, "Eli,